So without further ado, I'm just going to switch on the chat here. I nearly left the meeting. That would have been shocking. All right. So
don't play the technology.
Yeah, don't touch the technology, Steve. And what I love about this image is you can see that God is really stretching at his full length to reach Adam, and Adam is kind of, I think, quite indifferently just sort of vaguely sort of touching God. So this is actually a drawing I did in collaboration with the Evolver, as there's this human hand, in this case, my hand, and reaching into the work of the machine. There's this, we made machines, and now they're kind of separating from us. Often, maybe they're God. Maybe they are now the God, and we are somewhat left behind. I felt it was too ordered, too regular, too repeatable. The patterns that it gave always were essentially like that, which is not that interesting. It's not what life's about. To me, I think, looking for life. I was looking for something that was more about life. So I persisted in evolving this machine, this atom, to see where it would go. Why don't we get it started?
Let's start up, yeah.
So you'll see in the other screen there, the Evolve is now activated. So what I'm going to describe to you now is the most basic properties of this machine called the Evolver. It's part of this conversation now. It's very temperamental, as I've said. We don't really know what it's going to do. So we're just going to keep an eye on it. But essentially what it is it's got, and you can see it, it's got two parts. The part that you saw previously of the atom, there you can see there is what I call the regular, the predictable, repeatable part. It always does the same drawing. But on the other side of it, and you can see that if you're looking at the camera, closest to the camera, there's like a lot of quite frantic, almost chaotic activity, and that's the irregular pendulum. It's basically, what it is not repeatable, okay? It produces novel drawings every time. And when I first made this, I looked at it and I got this feeling of I was looking at a model of myself with my regular core where I breathe. I know I'm alive when I'm breathing. My heart is beating fairly regularly. So yes, the regular is like the control of the system. It's got to keep it going to keep it alive. That regular core drives the irregular pendulum, and it's just got snag now, which is beautiful because that's what it does. So sometimes it even seems to know me, like it seems to know what I'm about. And on the odd occasion, it is drawn. I'm obsessed with birds. You know this, right? Mm-hmm. As an artist, I'm always trying to draw birds. My Evolver basically drew these birds. So I thought, this thing knows me. It's done the most extraordinary drawings of birds in flight. And I'm thinking, if only I could draw birds as well as the Evolver can. So subsequently, I'm trying to steal its ideas. I'm trying to learn to draw like this. I have to now take you back to 2017, 2018, when I did a residence at the CSIRO. But I said to them, why don't I come here and build you machines to show you how the scientific process. They were quite, they were temperamental. I mean, it seems that I'm a temperamental builder of machines. I think it's because I'm not an engineer, thank heavens. So my machines tend to have their own personality. So I think it's an important part of certainly my working method is to allow this very almost stressful situation to just happen. Because, it's things that are far from equilibrium. When things are far from equilibrium, that real evolution, real growth actually happens. So I'm kind of terrified and comfortable with the idea. But now I'm going to show you a little brief video of my most humiliating moment. And it's an important video because it actually demonstrated something so important to me. So this is the performance that I was telling you about, where I was going to get the two machines to interact. I've got fairly crude video of it. And what you will see is that there's a scientist on this side driving the one machine called the scientist. And there's a scientist on the other side driving the other machine, which is actually, funnily enough, called Sid's nervous system interacting with a scientist at CSIRO, because I really felt nervous. I felt like I'd built my nervous system because it was that nerve-wracking, to be totally honest. So let's what you can see here is me kind of like trying to get the machines to work. All right. Now, the one machine, the chain kept jumping off. So it was a part of a bicycle, and it was basically behaving very temperamentally and very badly. And I was freaking out, but inside. I was freaking out inside. So nobody was necessarily aware of my outfreak. And then at a certain point, a very interesting thing happened. Because part of the idea was I wanted the scientists to be interacting and bringing things onto the machine. And so it could be a reflection of what was happening at CSIRO. But a group of scientists gathered around the machines and gently jostled it and niggled it and tried to get the chain back on, and just very tenderly got these machines to work a little bit, not perfectly, but a little bit. And then I noticed, because you notice this piece of paper here, what that is me recording this. So essentially that piece of chain or wire is what's connecting the two machines, and I'm recording by attaching a pen, that paintbrush to it. And if you look over here, this is the final drawing. And it took me a while to realize something quite profound about it. Initially, I thought the objects I was making were in and of themselves the thing I was interested, like they were the interesting artwork. And then this drawing here was, I realized, a collaboration, capturing a collaboration between the scientists at CSIRO as well as my machine. So yeah, is a recording, if I could, I'm pointing to the screen, but obviously that's not really helping. But essentially what you're seeing here is a collaboration between humans, very tender. It took me a while to realize that, but it was a very tender collaboration between humans and machines. And then I realized what was most interesting is not the machine itself. That's part of it, yes. But it's what kind of interactions it can induce, or what is the system that I'm actually describing, what is actually going on. It's not just the machine. There's something about the way it's interacting with its environment. And I thought, well, that's something that I can now look at. And this is where Matt comes into it, because I said to Matt, it was about 4 months ago, Matt, why don't we, we were trying to think of something to do together. And I think we came up with the idea sort of jointly. I said, let's
do an experiment.
Yeah, exactly. Let you interact with the machine. And I recorded.
But do it in a scientific way.
Exactly. You come along, you're a physicist now, so you're going to show this machine a thing or two.
The idea was to consider putting a bit of rigor in the whole process.
But okay, so we did the experiment to see what the effect of the environment would be on the machine. I really wanted the ideas to come from actual measurement, because I think otherwise you can really go off on several tangents.
I mean, you started telling me that essentially this machine was an emulation or a simulation of yourself, right? So in the same way I interact with you, I prod you or whatever, and you interact, you respond to your environment. We wanted to see how the machine, or SID2, would respond to its environment.
You were in control. You were trying to control this machine.
Then after a while, I understood that the machine started to gain its own rhythm, and to the point where you can't really control it. You can't really control what it's doing. And at that point, for me, I was like, well, if I can't control what it's doing, and I can't predict what it's doing, is this machine now making its own decisions? I was trying to tame the machine.
So initially, that was actually an important point, is that the first 5 minutes you were a physicist recording a device. The second half, you had basically given it personality traits.
An atom originally, you had a picture of it in your presentation. So, but it now has evolved to be something different. And it's evolved because of its external environment.
Yeah.
And that external environment to the machine is, you're part of that external environment,
right.
For instance, right? So you've evolved the same way that an environment might evolve the shape of, snails in generations after generation.
See, we tend to measure what is measurable. Yeah, we're dealing with a system that is maybe less measurable.
Possibly less measurable,
but that doesn't make it less...
doesn't make it less interesting.
Yeah, I mean, how is this... is it conscious?
That's a tough one. I can predict what it's going to do.
Well,
I can. It's going to stay where it is.
I would say okay.
But is it not making the decision to stay where it is based on the laws of physics, in the same way that this machine is exhibiting its own behaviors based on the laws of physics?
I think in a systems way, it is conscious, because it's directing you. Oh, God. I don't. Yeah, that's a great idea. So I'm not a good planner. So this will take me somewhere once I analyze what happened here. I think the mere fact of the Zoom kicking us out and all of that, I think is somehow part of the story. And it'll enrich the Evolver going forward, because I actually think the Evolver is responsible for calling this meeting. What do you think about that, Matt? Well, I think are there any other comments? Because otherwise, I think we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
You got a small baby to get home to.
She'll be asleep now.
So. That's good news. So I just want to thank everybody who joined, and all part of the you're all part of this kind of interactive feedback network. So you're all kind of part of this, and that really is true. I think if we can sum this whole thing up, we're all part of a profound, evolving, feedback-driven system. And I think that really is, for me, that actually brings me emotional kind of, that brings an emotional level to it, where it's not just a machine. And it's also a metaphor for what we all are, you know. So let's keep this thing evolving.